Hello, my name is Joe Paris. This interpersonal communication project is designed to help me expand the conversation. Through this course of study, I have discovered a personal communication flaw that reveals my nonverbal cues during conversation. This process of defining a personal goal that will facilitate relationship involves self-awareness and an openness to change. I have developed an understanding of my inner emotions that causes judgmental thoughts to emerge into nonverbal cues that can affect relationships. The basic ongoing goal is to build healthy relationships by enlarging the conversation through effective listening skills, empathy, and edification. As I continue to take you through this journey of improving my interpersonal communication skills, I will define specific goals and finish with feasible solutions. But first, let me take you with a quote from Paul, from Romans 14, verse 19. Therefore, let us pursue the things which make for peace, and the things which one may edify another. The communication goals listed on this slide intended to guide me through a process of enlarging the conversation. First on my list is the I'm okay, you're okay attitude. Taking on this type of attitude will allow an open and relaxed communication that extends an understanding that is logical, empathetic, and non-judgmental. As I keep the attitude of I'm okay, you're okay, it will lead into my second goal of effective listening. When listening at a level 1 method, I can establish non-judgmental skills while showing empathy. There's a direct correlation between Barry Allen's method to improve listening skills and Peterson's talker listening card that helps us build relationships through listening. The process of integrating Peterson's talker listening card into my day-to-day practice will help me eliminate those thoughts of judgment. Barry Allen points out that one of the first steps in becoming an effective listener is self-awareness. Understanding the reasons for those thoughts and beliefs that can control my verbal and nonverbal actions becomes a key aspect to change. I believe that our past defines who we are and how we are perceived in the present and also in the future. Without self-awareness, we will remain stuck in a conundrum of communication failure. Take, for instance, my previous work experience. Being in management restaurant for over 30 years, I have developed a skill of what I call reading people. The ability of making a judgment based on the individual's verbal and nonverbal actions. I have the ability to read between the lines of who they really are, their motives, skill level, and how or if they can move our company in a positive direction. Although this skill set seemed to be an asset in the restaurant industry, it can also be problematic within the ministry and also in furthering my education. My education and personal life has developed what Stewart refers to as worldviews on how we interpret cues, and also what Barry Allen refers to as our listening filters, both of which can be a hindrance without self-awareness to facilitate change within our lives. If you notice, of all these filters are overlapping one another or touching one another, and they can either demonstrate either positive or negative aspects within our conversation. The ability of making quick judgments or reading between the lines may help to further the conversation and expose true emotions of others. But the downside is when those judgments are revealed through our nonverbal body actions. Stewart states that inferring is to go beyond the evidence to either conclude or judge based on our perceptions. Stewart also points out that it's almost impossible not to do. The perceptions of how I use these filters or infer can work both for and against me throughout conversation. Burgoon's article on mindfulness and interpersonal communication notes that verbal and nonverbal communication channels afford them a wealth of potential information within social interaction. Although the nonverbal cues of others can be a positive in processing their verbal message, it can also become a distraction when my thoughts turn into a judgmental nature. Burgoon also points out that our nonverbal message may elicit more thoughtful, creative, and flexible states of mind, which is a form of mindfulness actions. I believe that it all comes back to an understanding of self-awareness, of both positive and negative characteristics of one's background in order to become an effective listener. Stewart's mentions that a foundation of conversation is a sociological bedrock, and Barry Allen reminds us that effective listeners who are aware of their bias are better able to avoid being judgmental. An article by Popescu on interpersonal communication relevance to professional development in social systems mentions that a man is a social product, the result of his actions, and that all existing entitles. In other words, it takes knowledge to transform the environment. Monaldo Popescu also quotes in this next slide, which reminds us the results of change that can come about through the knowledge, information, and ideas that we can obtain. The results of my DISC personality traits are on this slide. The IS, or inspirational specialists, show what others expect from me, and the CIS, or competent influencing specialist, reveals the true me. There are positive and negative traits associated with these personality types, which I'll review on the next slide. Queendom is also an interpersonal communication skills test that I scored a 96 overall, which reveals, in their words, that my communication skills are excellent. For the process of this project, I'm going to focus on the negative because that's what I really need to change within my life to move forward. So on the DIS personality types and traits, the negatives are that I dislike time control, which is very true. And it also says difficult tasks, which I have a little bit of question with that. That I'm sensitive to what other people think, and that I can often rub people the wrong way because I'm very critical and fault-finding, which goes along with being judgmental. And I can also be very emotional. And I do believe that people are more important than rules or regulations in life. And I do get very upset about false information, and it can cause conflict within my life, so I do recognize that as well. The negatives from Queendom are that I'm very assertive when dealing with others, and that I seldom hold back from asking or discussing sensitive issues, even if it results in an argument, and that I express opinions even if they stray away from the norm. I'd like to point out that the basic premise under the advice section of Queendom's interpersonal communication skills test follows Peterson's text and techniques of the talker-listener card. These potential barriers that affect how I am perceived within nonverbal and verbal communications can also determine the outcome of any relationship. And the defining barriers that I have pointed out on these slides are filters, inferring, revealing my nonverbal cues, meta messages, and owning the problem. The potential barriers defined in the previous slide is the main reason for the noise pollution that causes communication breakdowns within relationships. The solutions involve the internal thought process of self-awareness, self-knowledge, and self-actualization. I have realized this throughout this course, that my nonverbal actions can limit my communication skills, and it can also affect future and my present relationships. And those are the things that I want to change. Being a minister for a group of churches, I cannot work on the same basis I did when I was in management. I would like to leave you with this final quote from Susan Scott. Our works, our relationships, and in fact our very lives succeed or fail gradually, then suddenly, on a conversation at a time. So it takes us one conversation at a time can either make or break any situation. Thank you for your time.